Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NOVAcast. This is episode number 2. Spoke with Steve Lodwig last week on automatic bagging. This week, we've got my friend Maxx Wright from Formic. He is the product manager for all things palletizing over at Formic. And it's going to be a great discussion, Max, I think, on a lot of the things that you're passionate about, just like it was last week with Steve and bagging, which is what he's passionate about. So thanks for jumping on the show.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a great idea, Josh, and just happy to be here as your second guest, right?
Yeah, second guest. So I think we've got, I don't know, maybe 25 views so far on the first one. So,
That's
with your star power, maybe we get to 100. So we'll see.
That's a 25% increase over anything I've done. So that's a big plus. Yeah, absolutely excited to be here. We're excited to be a customer of Nova here at Formic. So we heavily invest in technology like the MPC compact palletizer that you guys offer. Just for some quick background on me, I've worn a lot of hats in this industry over the last 10 years. I've been an application engineer, a product manager for Bastion Solutions and Toyota Advanced Logistics, as well as a sales manager and product manager for Kindred AI and Ocado. And that has all led me, the culmination of the peak of my career so far is here at Formic. With the excellent people on our team over here, we're really working to revolutionize the way that folks can buy automation and then reap the benefits of automation, right, without having all the responsibility and risk on their own shoulders. So, we're really excited to do that with Nova, Josh.
Yeah, it's been great. We love working with you guys and getting to know everybody over on the Formic side. And like Max said, that is a good opportunity for a lot of customers, right, who maybe they don't have it in their capital budget right away, or they're just getting into automation for the first time, kind of want to do a little try before you buy scenario. I think it gives the end user a lot of options, especially nowadays, right, with how advanced automation is, and things are changing all the time. So it's a good opportunity for those end users to get some automation into their facilities.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and especially this time of year, Josh, that was a great call out. Everyone has their budgets locked in, right, for next year. I've heard that on like 6 calls just today alone. Say, hey, we've already got our budget locked in, so this is a great opportunity to do something. And a lot of times that budget doesn't include robots, right? There's a lot of other capital equipment that our customers need and require for their lines to run well and be updated. And so robots, especially if it's a new thing to a company, this is just a great way to buy, right? It's no CapEx, no upfront costs. It's an hourly rate, and we cover all engineering, all services, all spares, and all maintenance throughout the life of the contract. So it's kind of like try a robot for an hourly rate that's very competitive with labor today. Very, very competitive, right? The Nova MPC cell, Josh. Not to go too far off on Formic here, but
you're good.
Middle of the road price, right, for an MPC cell from Nova is $15 an hour, right? Yep. Which across the country, our sales analysts have told me that beats the labor rate. So if you're in part of the if you're in part of the country where that's not true, we
cool. Yeah, and obviously, we love selling as many MPCs as we can, right? So it's a great opportunity for both us, you, and the end user. Everybody wins. So
right. It's kind of it's a dual-sided business model, right? We drive more sales to integrators and manufacturers, right? So they can continue to update their systems, right, and kind of bring new blood into the industry, and that's just like the MPC, sports, advanced safety, and pallet builder software. Not everyone in the industry provides those functionalities yet, right? Yep. And so a lot of that, one of my old managers used to say, hey, we do R&D on our projects, right? So if we have some extra margin on a project, we'll do the R&D and we'll update our system in that regard. So if the whole integrator ecosystem that I've lived in my whole career is doing that, then more sales, better R&D, and then overall customers just have a better experience with the whole robotic palletizer concept.
Sure, yeah. And I think one thing that would be helpful for the viewers or listeners here to understand is kind of as a product manager at Formic, your role on the day-to-day is is kind of having conversations with both your sales team and, end users, salesmen from, integrators like us. You're sort of tied into everything, right? So you can see what's out there, being offered in the market. You can know how competitive it is. I would think it's a real advantage for, certain end users to have access to a product manager like yourself, because you can, basically say, hey, here's what's out there. Here are your options. And if you're getting an option that's been vetted by Maxx, it's a good option, right?
Well, and the product manager role is really all we're trying to do is connect experts like yourselves, right, Nova, and we're trying to plug that directly into our customers, right, and just say, hey, here's your need. It's going to meet right here. Here's what Nova provides. Their solution meets you right at your need, and we want to make more of those connections happen, right? So that's really what a product manager does here at Formic. And so it includes all those things that you just said. So that's one thing that we do here at Formic is we didn't try to come up with our own hardware, right? We didn't try to come up with the world's best palletizer. Nova already has, right? The companies like Nova have already come up with these solutions, right? That meet a very real need in the industry. We're just trying to, again, connect people to that a lot easier.
Yep. And that have been meeting that need for, decades and decades, right? So I think that's a good opportunity, right? You guys go out there, you vet the integrators that you all want to work with, and you go from there. So I think that's a good model.
Yeah.
So let's dive in a little bit. I know you're really passionate about, robotic palletizing as a whole. You see a lot of palletizers out there. And one of the things that you mentioned before the call was really evaluating, an end user's need, right? Do they need a collaborative robot? Do they need a cooperative robot, which I'm excited to hear you talk about the cooperative robot, or do they need a truly industrial robot?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and when we go on site, so one thing I just want to clarify too is this is really just stacking boxes, right? At the end of the day, it's stacking boxes or stacking bags. Right? That's really where palletizing fits in. So when you boil it down to that level, it feels really, really simple. Until you get into all of the nuances across all the different case types, right? All the different kinds of primary and secondary flaps, tape or glue. And so that's where Nova's expertise really comes in and helps us navigate, these opportunities, right? And our customers' needs. You guys collect all that information here with the Formic team, and we spit out, the best possible solution. And the MPC that Nova has developed is a modular platform, right? So there's different options that can be plugged onto that, right? You can do we talked about multi-gripper right before the call, Josh. If you want to pick more than one box at a time, that's a standard plug on to the Nova MPC cell. And it's a mobile platform, right? You can move it from line to line and reconfigure it.
It's got fork pockets. You come in, you pick it up, you move it in and out for wash down, like one of the projects we're working on. That'll FAT here actually this week. So that's timely to talk about. I mean, yeah, that's a big thing, right? If you can move it, that's certainly helpful.
Josh really had to bend my arm behind my back to come out to Denver for the FAT. So I know he's got a great facility out there. Obviously, Denver's a great city, and so we're excited to go up there next week and look at another system we bought from Nova. So, but to your point, Josh, with the two bays that collapse, all of that kind of rolls into that center category you talked about. There is something between collaborative and a fully industrial separated robot cell, right? So I could bore you, with the International Federation of Robotics codes or 5 different, safety enclosures, yada yada. But there's this, center line where there's this, the system's called cooperative, right? Palletizing is an interesting application in and of itself. There's rarely a situation where somebody is picking up a box and handing it to the robot, and then the robot saying, "Oh, thank you," and then it's putting it on a pallet, right? That's a cooperative application, right? That's a collaborative operation. And palletizing in and of itself just really isn't collaborative, right? You kind of want to push a button and then back up and let it roll. So that's where the cooperative systems come in as a really nice stopgap, between the big industrial systems, right, that many people use and have great success with on high speed lines, right, and it's collaborative's bigger brother, right, and that's where the MPC really comes in and has a big swing. You mentioned that product managers are talking to customers. We're talking to our internal teams. We're talking to the experts, the integrators like yourself. One of the things, what we hear a lot is that, yeah, we'd really like to have an industrial robot, but the collaboratives are just they're easier to work with, right? Or they're smaller, right? They don't take up as much room. We hear they're harder to move, right? The big industrial systems are too hard to pick up and put somewhere else. They're hard to program. They're too expensive. Like we get all of these really intelligent feedback from our customers all the time, and one, it shows that people really know their stuff, right? It's great to go into a conversation where people have this deep knowledge of what their line needs, and they know that they need something that's going to be mobile, right? Maybe they do a wash down every month, right? That's
Yep.
the system we're going to go look at next week, right?
Yep. Yep.
So
Exactly.
yeah, the MPC, fits into that category, right? It's mobile. It's a really tight footprint. It's actually a tighter footprint than a collaborative safety scanner field, which has to be 13 and a half by 13 and a half feet, right, in diameter. So that's a pretty big swath. If you're inside that on a collaborative system, that system slows down to collaborative speed, right? So you basically are at a quarter of the maximum speed of a robot. With the MPC, right, you can walk right up to the edge of that safety fencing, and the robot's palletizing 5 inches away from your nose, right?
Yep.
All within the safety fence, right? All within the safety enclosure that Nova provides.
Yep.
So, not to ramble too much, but these cooperative systems like the MPC, they're small. You can interact with them very easily. You don't have to do lockout, tag out. They're mobile. You can move them from line to line as needed, or move them out of the room while you do wash down and move them back in. And they're easy to work with, right? You can enter the cell as needed to remove pallets or add slip sheets. And then, of course, with the Nova's automatic pallet builder software, you can use this interactive, very intuitive user interface, right, to build a new pallet. So all of these things that we hear in the industry that hey, this is why I haven't wanted to upgrade from our collaborative system, really are answered by a system like the MPC.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a lot of great points there. And one of the reasons why the MPC has been such a great product for us, is that companies that are looking for options, right? Or they're looking at it, they say, "Oh, I need a cobot," right? And then you start
Yeah.
getting into a conversation with them, and it's like, "Well, we've got 5 different case sizes, and we're running up to 20 a minute, and oh yeah, we've got this 50-pound box that we're doing too," right? So that is, the cobot might work for 65-70% of their scope, right? But it's that 50-pound box, which is the real issue why they're even looking at the palletizer in the first place. Because
Right.
they got somebody picking up a 50
That's the big
pound box
ergonomic
all day.
driver. Right.
Yeah.
That's the big ergonomic driver, right? Everyone's like, yeah, we can pick up the 2 pound boxes all day, but the 50 pound beast.
Yep.
That's what we
Yeah,
want.
exactly. So, and then it's like, well, it doesn't make sense to get the cobot for 70% of it, right? You need to kind of have a solution that's going to work for your whole scope and your whole product offering. And we work with co-packers all the time too, who they could have a totally different product line next year that they have this year, right? So it's got to have that ability to adapt. And we're lucky with the great design work that our engineering team has done to really come up with the product squaring for the multiple case sizes, the dual stage gripper to make sure we can hit that rate, anything over 10 with multi-pick and things like that. And it's just been a great option. And the washdown, right? That's a huge deal. To have an option that is mobile, can hit 20, even 30 sometimes cases a minute, depending on the pattern and the case sizes, and be able to handle that payload that all within the same footprint, right? You talked about the footprint. That's the biggest thing. And there are a lot of companies out there with small footprint palletizers, right? And I like to think ours is right up there with the very best. And yeah, it's been a great product for us, and it's fun to see the impact it has on so many different companies. And I'm sure that you see that as well on your side all the time too, with just that person who has been palletizing 50-pound cases of whatever it is for the last year and a half, and they stuck it out. Now they get to go somewhere else in the plant and do something where it's so much less physically taxing, and everybody wins, right? It's not a matter of replacing labor. It's a matter of being able to relocate that labor into a more, or a safer, I guess would be a good way to put it, a safer job, right? A safer, more fulfilling, less strenuous, less repetitive job.
Yeah, no, I mean, we are deploying a palletizer coming up here for a line that's doing 0.8 cases per minute. and the boxes are 75 pounds, which that is a behemoth of a box. If you haven't spent 8 hours moving a 75-pound box, now they do have vacuum assist, right? And so that's really helpful, but that's also just, it's tedious and hard for an operator to do for 8 hours. So, but
Sure.
to your point, right, that the employee in that role, his new job is to handle the robot and help the robot if there's any, if we knock down a stack or anything like that. We haven't had that in FAT or testing yet, just because the boxes are so big and so firm. But
Sure.
yeah, he's got a pretty cush job now, right?
Yeah, and I don't think there are any slip sheets on those big 70-pound cases, are there?
No, right, exactly. So, yeah, the small footprint palletizers, the 1 in 2 outs, just like you're describing, have been a really big hit. We joke that you mentioned collaboratives earlier. We joke that collaboratives are the gateway drug, and we they are. We provide a lot of collaborative palletizers, and a lot of our customers are co-packers and co-mans. And one thing that is part of the discussion is here's what we're doing today. We ask the rates, right? We ask the weights of the cases. We ask what kind of corrugate. We ask all these questions to make sure we're getting the right machine that we then feed to Josh and Nova. But one of the things that we don't sometimes capture, or that it can be provided, so we ask how much faster do you think you'll be going in a year or 2 years or 4 or 5 years, and a lot of times the answer is I don't know. And so in an I don't know situation, if the price is the same from Formic, you definitely get more oomph, right, with a industrial cooperative system. Instead of having 5% overspeed, right? If you're doing 5 cases a minute with a collaborative, you're already pretty much maxed out. If you have any accumulation upstream of that robot's going to maybe be able to eat through those cases at 7 cases per minute, which is great, right, for certain operations. Absolutely, and they have a great application, especially if you need something that's really mobile, in a term of like 5 minutes, right? I think how fast does it take to collapse an MPC and move it with a forklift, Josh?
Oh, you could do it real quick. I mean, I would think, a couple of minutes, right? You disconnect everything, you bring in your forklift, you pick it up, you put it to the next line. And, ideally you'd already have your electrical and power drops, get everything all connected again, and you're ready to go. And, the beauty of the MPC, right,
really
is you
quick.
already have, with our pallet builder software that we just talked about, you could have your pallets programmed, your recipes in the panel, in the HMI before you move it from line to line, right? So if you're saying, okay, I'm going to move this across 3 lines, right? This end of the plant runs, peanuts at this time of the year, and then they'll run walnuts at this time of the year. And that's in a whole other, place based on maybe the filling equipment, right? Or the case packers. So you can move it around. And that gives you the option, rather than, buying 3 of these or getting a bunch of conveyance to try to, put it all into one center palletizing area or something like that. So,
Right.
but yeah,
right.
I mean, the mobility of a small footprint palletizer like this makes a big difference, and really helps a lot of companies realize an ROI quicker.
Mm-hmm. You get that oomph, right, that we're talking about, right?
Yep.
You can move up to 10 cases per minute with the single pick, and don't quote me on this, but probably 16, right? With the right box, you could probably go 16, 18 cases per minute with a dual.
Oh, sure. You can go even more than that, right? We've even
I was trying to be
3-stage grippers on this, right? You got to imagine, right? So if you've got 80 kilograms of payload, let's call that 160, 180 pounds. Let's take off, I don't know, 50 pounds to be safe for the tooling. The rest of that is all payload, right? So, that's, you never want to top it right at the, top it out at the max for too long. But yeah, that's what we're working with 80 kgs of payload. That gives you a lot of leeway, right? So, and the one thing I think that you touched on that I always hear, and I'm sure you hear this all the time too, is right. Well, right now we're palletizing at 5 a minute, but our case packer can go up to 22 cases a minute, right?
Yes.
All of a sudden, there goes your second shift, right? Okay, we'll bring in a palletizer, or just imagine all of the output that you could have if you could start using your equipment upstream to its capabilities, because now you have a palletizer capable of let's call it 95% uptime, right? Compared to maybe labor that who knows, right? It's every day can be totally different. So it gives you that consistency to run the rest of your equipment to its full capability.
There's so many things you just said that I could go off on tangents on. Those are all excellent points. We have customers. I was actually just on site earlier this week, and we had a customer, basically say, we run 3 shifts because we have a certain quota, a certain number of boxes we produce every day, right? Now it was a number of pallets on a number of trucks, right? Which
Sure.
then correlates to a number of boxes. And they said, we can only staff, X amount of people in this area per day, and so we have to run a lot slower than our machines are spec for, and so then we have to run 3 shifts. And so with our system that we were able to provide with a compact palletizer, they were able to actually condense all of their production to basically a shift and a half, right? So they actually cut their shifts down, which then cut down the time that they had to have everything running in that area, which saves
Sure.
energy. It saves all your utilities bills. It saves employee costs. I mean, it was a massive saver for them. So, and just like all of our customers, instead of saying, "Hey, that's where we're tapped out. We're going to do 1.5 shifts of this product," they added another line in the area. So,
Yeah, there you go.
yeah, we like to think that we're helping our customers expand and produce more, faster, better, stronger. That's the idea.
Yeah, and I mean, you probably see it on your end too. I know you guys do. Working with these 3PLs or logistics companies, or even co-packers with multiple locations. It's like, yeah, we'll start with one, right? And then, by the time you're going to FAT for the first one, they've got the second one on order, or you're already in another facility, or a couple months later, it's like, wow, we don't know what to do with all these employees, right? Or things like that you hear from time to time. So those are always the fun success stories of the palletizers. But one thing that you mentioned too, just in conversations that we've had are kind of the myths, right? That you talk about with, just cobots or really any robot in general. So would love to know kind of your, one or two biggest myths that you hear as kind of the applications engineer, whether it's, one of the great sales guys like Carson or Juan coming over and saying, "Hey, this customer's doing this and I know that we can do this," and you've got to say, "Oh, well, maybe not." Or you see the end customer who says, "Oh," you get that end customer, right, who says, "Yeah, this is exactly what we need," right? The guy coming in. But what are some of those myths that maybe you hear in your conversations when you have to really decide what the best solution is?
Yeah, absolutely. Right, and that's a huge playing field. The number one thing that we get when it comes to palletizers, right, is it can't be too big, right? So we understand that a lot of our customers are space constrained. You need something that's going to fit in really into the footprint of where that person was working originally. So in palletizing world, a lot of times there's 1 or 2 people, right, who are picking up the box, right, fulfilling the scope of palletizing, right. They're picking up a box that's already sealed, or they're sealing the box and picking it up, and they're putting it on 1, 2, or 3 pallets, kind of in that area. And then there's 1 or 2 forklift drivers who are just furiously trying to keep up with that person. Depending on how many cases there are per build, right, and that's the variation. Is if you only have 30 cases on a pallet, right, they're big, they're heavy. A person can palletize that in less than 5 minutes, right? So the big thing we always hear is, hey, we're worried an industrial palletizer is going to be too big. And so that's why we're talking about collaboratives. That's why we're talking about the really small footprint early on in the conversation. Again, our customers know their processes far better than we do, right? They're the experts in their field. They've figured out how to create their product the way that they do in their niche, with their sales offering, right? That they are the experts of that production line, and they're selling that product for that reason, and that's why they're growing. So they know exactly what they need, and they come in, they say, "Hey, I can't go outside 14 by 14 feet." And we go, "Great, we have a solution for that. It's called the MPC palletizer from Nova," right? And you had the drawing up earlier, right, of the size of the
Yeah.
MPC. What are the dimensions of that? Width and
So the
length?
one that we're looking at, I believe, is 14 by, yeah. So in this one, it's about, let's call it 15 feet by 10 feet.
Yeah, I have mine in inches. So I had 96 inches by 78 inches,
Yeah.
right, for the single pallet, and
Yep.
then 167 by 80 for the 2 pallets. So that's
And
extremely
then when it's
common.
fully collapsed, I mean, so you're looking at, so one of the constraints on this specific system was, hey, we've got a door that's 8 feet wide, right?
Yeah.
So we had to be able to collapse this fencing into the system and be able to pick everything up with that forklift and have it fit through that 8-foot door for a washdown, right? So when everything's collapsed in, it's 8 feet, right? Most of the time that's not a problem because they've got the bigger doors in the warehouse. But this specific one was like, hey, we've got an 8-foot wide door and it can only be 10 feet high, right?
And I love that
we were able
telescoping
to pull
gate
that one in.
design, that you guys use, right? To kind of have those handles that sheath over each other and close on the cell. For mobility purposes, it's great. But back to the whole idea, right? The myth is it's too big, right? It's not going to fit through a door. It's not going to fit here at the end of our production line, which we finally tuned in to fit in this part of our facility and produce this much. I think between Formic and Nova, we have a really affordable solution, right? That will also fit in that space. So that's a huge.
And I think to that point, real quick on the size constraints, we hear that a lot too, right? And one of the reasons why is because when people are designing their warehouses or building their warehouses, they're not thinking about, okay, this is where the robot goes, right? 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they weren't thinking that. It was like, okay, yeah, we could fit a few people back there to palletize, right? So now you're going into these areas where, you have very minimal space, right? And really it's because nobody thought about, hey, maybe I need, 14 by 14 for this, robotic cell, right?
Have you ever driven around
that's something
Boston?
that'll be interesting to see. What's that?
Have you ever driven around Boston?
Oh yeah. I'm a big Red Sox fan.
That's a weird question. So the roads are like this big, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Because they were designed for a horse and buggy, right?
Yeah.
And they're on all the roads they're curvy, right? They're just it's you're in a car and you're like, this is a nightmare,
I mean, driving through the north end of Boston, I mean, it's worth it to get to all the great Italian food, but I mean, how do two cars fit there, right? And then you've got the random person in the middle of the street doing, whatever they're doing.
I'm walking in. Right. The New York response. I was actually born in Boston. Weird side fact.
Well, there you go.
I haven't been back there in years.
Sox fan?
I'll just say yes on the podcast, right?
There you go. Yeah, that makes it easier, right?
They're Sox. Yeah, absolutely. I don't watch that much baseball, but
I won't follow it up with any quizzes about 2003 or 2004 or anything like that. So I'm a big Red Sox fan, and in 2003 they lost in Game 7 to the Yankees. Aaron Boone hit a walk-off home run. And I didn't go to school for like a week because, half where I grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania. And, half of the lunch table with my buddies were all Yankee fans. The other guys were Phillies fans, and there was me, a Red Sox fan, right? So everybody was giving me crap all the time, right? It was, especially the Yankees-Red Sox feud, that was real.
So I got us into this. I apologize. I said Boston. Josh is a Sox fan. I love it.
Yeah, sorry for the Red Sox tangent. I mean,
we got a glimpse of your childhood there. This was awesome. This is Josh's trigger point. I know this now.
Yeah, exactly. If you ever want to get me to stop talking about like selling our mobile cell, just mention the word Red Sox, right? And then I'll go on a 5-minute tangent. So.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, so Boston though is it's the same thing, right? It wasn't designed for quote unquote automation, right? Cars. And so it's the same thing with a lot of these facilities, right? The processes were designed, and they weren't designed around a big robot cell. So I would say, less than 5 years ago, if you were looking for a compact cell, the technology hadn't really caught up, right? We weren't able to offer Cat 3 third-party approved safety systems, right, on a tight cell like this. So if they were out there, they probably were very expensive and hard to get, or very slow. And I would say, Josh, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but just in the last 5 years, we've really seen this new crop of cooperative palletizers come up, and Nova is right in there throwing elbows with everybody else. And so it's just a great opportunity for our customers, right? Our mutual customers to get their hands on this new technology, to try a cell that's not bigger than their current operation, and produce pallets without having to lift a finger. It's really great.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we debuted this mobile palletizing cell at Pack Expo, and I believe it was 2021.
Yeah,
and
I was there.
To, we were both at Pack this year too, right? So, or any of these shows, you walk the shows and you see a lot of these similar palletizers, right? The small footprint, not necessarily mobile like ours, but yeah, that's something you see a lot of. So,
which is a key. By the way, that mobility. I mean, that's a key aspect of what
Yep.
makes these systems, a really good customer experience. I think once you have to permanently install something on a floor, especially for these customers we're talking about, right, our users who are very agile, right, and
Yep.
flexible, and they may have a new contract, next year or in 2 years or in 3 years.
Or looking at a new
Formic is a
facility, right?
brand new facility. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you
Like,
how many times we've given someone a robot. They go, hey, by the way, do you see that facility across the road? We're moving there in 6 months. Can this thing come with us? And
yep.
instead of saying, hey, you got to pull up your epoxy, you got to pull up your deadbolt, like instead of saying you got to rip all this up and lay a new floor in that facility across the way, it's really, if you want to put some bolts down on the MPC, right, it's totally cool. But
Yep.
it's very easy to pull those up, those machine bolts, and move the cell. So we can go as far as you want on one side, right? Nova can be as safe and secure as you want them to be, and also as mobile and flexible as you need them to be. So it's a great
Yep.
solution.
Exactly.
I'm so glad you brought that up. The new facility that's a looming
I hear it all the time,
conversation.
right? That's
Yeah,
one of the things that, I would say at least a few times a month, somebody will say, yeah, we're looking at this now, we don't have much space, but we've got another facility that, we're going to be in here in the next couple of years. Can we bring that over? That's why we're looking at this, right? The mobility is a big reason why we're like, yeah, it would be great to get that in the new facility. So yeah, that's it's one of the reasons we've been able to sell a few of them for sure, right? It's that ability to run it with our current system, but then also move it seamlessly, across the street, like you said.
absolutely. Well, one thing that we've just observed about this industry is a lot of the customers, maybe haven't used robots before, right? That's something that Formic really unlocks is the first time users of this kind of robotic
Yeah.
arm automation. And it's it is a stepping off the cliff moment, right? There's a lot of eyes on our champion, right, internally to, hey, this guy's bringing in robots, right? It's our first robot.
Yep.
Maybe it's the owner of the company, or maybe the owner of the company's standing 5 feet away, with his arms folded, going, hey,
Yeah.
you got jokes, right? Is this going to work?
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
we want to provide a really good customer experience, and that, to your point, the flexibility to move relieves some of that pressure. Because hey, if it doesn't work on this line, we've got 4 or 5 other lines that need a palletizer, and we're just gonna scoot it over
Yep.
5 feet. So we have customers do that all the time, or their contract is reduced, right? Or their customer, right? If we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
a co-producer, right? Co-manufacturer or a co-packer, we've definitely been in situations where they've said, yeah, we had this product has been way down in sales this year. We're just not producing as much of it. But on the other side of our facility, we have this product that's just going gangbusters, right?
Yep.
And we absolutely need the palletizer. So, can we reprogram it and move it down the line? So you've hit on, we're now organically talking about our second myth that we hear a lot is it's too hard to move, right?
Yep.
And that's just not true, again, for this new generation, this new wave of these cooperative compact palletizers, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's certainly a different world out there. There are options for everybody. And, at this point, I think if you have the volume, I always say, if you have the volume to support it, you can get ROI on these systems in under a year, in certain
With
cases.
with Formic and with
Yeah.
Formic,
Well, yeah,
I think
sure.
it's
In the
out.
Formic model, yeah, right. That's as well. But even on the capital side, right? That's the
Yeah.
one kind of the selling point that we use is, you get quick ROI. And like for you guys, right?
Right, they're
Especially
not
if
too
somebody's
expensive.
running 2 shifts on this, they probably get ROI in a few weeks.
Well, and Josh,
So yeah.
all those ancillary costs too. And this isn't necessarily a myth about palletizers, but a lot of the early conversations we have, we say, hey, what are you currently paying for? What's the rate of labor in this area? And we get the base number, right? That you kind of have to put on the sign out front. Hey, now hiring palletizing $7 an hour. Well, it's not seven, but let's say, yeah, we're based out of Chicago. We're somewhere in the 20s, right? 18 to 20. You're in Charlotte,
Yep.
right? You
Yep.
probably somewhere between $16 and $18 an hour. So, typically that's the flat rate. But in order to hire a person and bring a person on and train them for the job, and then handle sick leave, right, and do vacations, and all the management that kind of balloons out from labor in that area, that also goes into the calculation of the cost of the machine, right, and the ROI payback. So,
Yep.
that's not a myth about palletizing, but it's definitely a myth about, ROI, right, return on
Yeah.
investment.
And then to add a
Right.
layer to that too, there are a lot of companies out there who can't find the labor and have to rely on a resource to then bring in and to staff their plant, right? So then
Sure.
there's even more cost on top of that. So you're paying a staffing agency, more money than you would be paying a direct employee. So yeah, I think that's these small footprint palletizers are really solving a lot of the labor shortage issues that a lot of our end customers see. So yeah, I think that's a kind of a great place to segue into just a little bit. How many times, and this might not happen as much on the Formic side yet, but do you see a customer who is interested in automation? They're a big enough company where they can totally support a much bigger system, right? They've got 20 lines, 10 lines, whatever it is. How have you seen someone kind of go from, okay, we've got the one small footprint palletizer. Now let's automate pallet delivery. Let's send it to the wrapper. Get a fully automated line. Now maybe they come back and they say, oh, it'd be great. We got 10 people, case packing. How many times have you seen that at least be a conversation, right? Where it's like, okay, we've been able to relocate 2 or 3 employees that are palletizing. Now let's figure out how we can relocate, 10 employees, right? Maybe the guy taking it to the wrapper or, the people case packing those boxes. Have you seen more conversations come up about more complete lines at the end of the line?
Yeah, well, and I'll just say, Nova's been an incredible scoping partner with us, right? We've gone into so many of these situations
Yeah.
and been like, hey, they want a palletizer, and then we come back and it's like, and a case pack, right? And so
Yeah.
sometimes, at Formic, we definitely
And they're
advise.
doing cans and cases and bags.
Yeah, and then we're doing candy palletizing. Yeah, so I mean,
Yep.
Nova and Formic have been in this situation before, and it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's the best possible feeling of fulfillment, right? For us, Josh, I would imagine, is when a customer said, "Hey, this has been such a great experience palletizing. Let's help out, a couple of our case packers upstream, right?" And make their
Yep.
jobs easier, right? And make their lives easier,
Yep.
and put in a case erector and a case sealer and a case packer, or a stretch wrapper, right? Instead of pulling out those pallets and having twice the density of forklift operators in that area, moving slowly, right? Because these are unwrapped pallets a lot. You'll see these
Yep.
forklift operators, tenderly moving the pallets and trying not to knock over a load. Just put an automatic stretch wrapper, right? Upgrade the system. So two talking points there. It happens all the time, and in my opinion, that's a sign of success. That when the customer is really happy with automation, that they just have no reasons to not go forward with more of it, then fantastic. It happens on pretty much every project. The things that we start to run into at that point is, hey, do we have space for this? What's the space ROI feedback? And a lot of times we end up in a different room, right? Or we end up in that new
Yep.
bright new shiny facility across the road.
Or
But
they're knocking down walls to make a palletizing room, right? Or
yeah,
something
yeah,
like that. So
absolutely. It's
yep.
all part of that ROI calculation. How
Yep.
much money are we wasting by using an operation that really could be automated, right? Dull, dirty, and dangerous. Those are the 3 big Ds of robotics. So if you have an application that's in the dull, dirty, and dangerous arena, then it's definitely something to look into automating. You said something interesting too, Josh. You said, how often does that happen, right? Or what's the frequency of that happening? I think that as it's usually within the first like 5 days of having a palletizer on the floor, right? It's immediately, hey, what can we do next, right?
Yep.
Especially with the Formic model, right? There's no capex, so you don't have to set anything aside. You don't even have to a lot of times get approval above the operational budget of that plant, right? So in your earlier example, you've got 6 lines, you got a big facility. They're no stranger to automation, but maybe it's their first robot, or they've had bad experiences with robots, right? With the
And to
supply
that
that's not
point, right,
delivering.
most of those operational budgets probably have room for 20 more employees that they can never find, right? So
Absolutely. Right. You can try a robot with really no risk, right? Because you're just
yep.
occupying one of those spots that you weren't able to hire for, right? Because there's not enough
Yep.
people lined up outside the door to pick boxes all day. So that was a
Yep.
great point earlier, Josh. I think that's fantastic. So yeah, we've been through the ringer together, right? We've expanded, through quoting entire lines for customers.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that I mean that's a quite a wealth of information, I think, so far on the cooperative, collaborative, industrial palletizers. Max, I really appreciate you coming on. But before I let you go, I know that you used to live in Denver, then you live in Oklahoma City now, right? Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City, yeah, with the Idaho.
You're an outdoorsy guy. So how's the fly fishing in Oklahoma City?
It's absolutely terrible. Yeah, it's terrible, Josh. Well, first off, I'm just a terrible fly fisher, so any a hobby doesn't necessarily mean I'm good at it. But it is so windy here.
Would you say you're knee deep in it?
Yeah, I would. I'd say I'm tied up, right? No, it's I'm pretty hooked on fly fishing, but here in Oklahoma this whole summer it's been so windy. I go out with a fly and I'm so excited. And the fish are just watching me on the shore. Get stuck in the tree, get stuck on it's blowing my line everywhere. So, it hasn't been great, but every now and then I sneak away for a trip somewhere that's blue ribbon fly, trout fishing and enjoy that for sure.
Well, tell us quickly about your good location for what's your favorite spot? What's your fly fishing spot, or where is your fly fishing spot?
I'm not going to give away. That's a fisherman's number one thing. You don't give away your spot.
Yeah, not the coordinates. Just tell me where it is.
Yeah, no, I was going to drop you, 36 latitude. No, there's a spot on the South Fork of the Boise River in Idaho that is just my dream spot. And one of my buddies who's a much better fly fisherman than me took me out there. And he's like, "I'm going to show you how to catch big fish." And I was over here like, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to catch anything. And sure enough, he put me on just some hogs. Massive trout, rainbows and brookies, and it was just it was a really great. I'm sorry, not brookies, browns. I was thinking of Colorado, but the South Fork of the Boise River up in Idaho. It's about 2 hours out of Boise. It's a great spot. Waters are crystal clear. There's this beautiful just vegetation in the river. It makes the river blues and greens, and you're in a canyon, and it is epic to say the least.
Sounds awesome. Well,
yeah,
next time we catch a big fish together, we'll have to go fly fishing out there. And you could teach me. I don't know how. I'm not as you can tell, I'm more of a baseball guy. So
there you go. Right. No, absolutely. There's a surprising number of fly fishermen here at Formic. It's and women, fly fishermen and women. So there's definitely a community over here, but I guarantee there's much more.
You guys
baseball.
Have a fly fishing Slack channel? Is that is that in the works?
No, Ben Thompson, right?
I know Ben. Yeah.
I get a fish picture from him every other week, and I love it. It's like the highlight of my week, seeing some big fish that Ben's caught. So
awesome.
When we're not working, we like to have fun over here.
Awesome. Well, Max, tell everybody how they could find you before we log off here. I know you're pretty active on LinkedIn. Let them know how they can shoot you an email or find you on LinkedIn. Yeah,
Maxwell or Maxx Wright in LinkedIn. You might want to put Formic after that just to make sure you go to the right LinkedIn profile. And then, if you just type in formic.com right into your favorite browser, your browser of choice, will come up. We have a little orange or white logo. It looks just like this. And we're a good place to start. Just like Josh said at the beginning of the call, just speccing out a system can kind of be overwhelming. So, Formic has a big engineering team, and we're talking to all the experts in the industry and the guys who are making it happen, like Josh and Nova. So, we'll connect you with their system, make those two leads connect, right? Not to use a fly fishing term, but, make those, make that connection, and we're off to the races.
Awesome, Max. Well, we certainly enjoy working with Formic. You guys help a lot of end customers out there, and it's been a great relationship so far, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Thank you so much for joining us here on episode 2 of the NOVAcast. We'll have to have you on again.
It's a great name, great podcast, Josh. Yeah, I'd love to come back. Maybe a season 2, cameo or something. That'd be great. So,
for sure.
Thanks for having me.
We'll probably both have to get on Cameo, right? For for those celebrity appearances after this podcast. So
right. Or maybe I'll whip out a Yankees
flooding in with a request.
Something. Yeah. Really stir the pot here. Well, thanks, Josh. Always a pleasure.
Thank you,
looking
Max.
forward to seeing you guys in Denver next week.
Yeah, it'll be great. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Max. Have a good one.
Hey, take care.